We welcome you to the webinar for the Wealth First clients and then referrals. Basically, I did not introduce Wealth First because you are all familiar with us for last 3 decades, either Ahmedabad or Bombay or Hyderabad clients. And we have been engaging with you in so many ways, another thing. And this purpose of this webinar is to actually constant update ourselves because the markets are dynamic and then investment nature itself is dynamic. We wanted this to continuously flow. Though we have a experience of 3 decades or whatever, we still feel that we are still a very small child in the entire, dynamics of the market. So we need to keep updated with the latest things, whatever is happening, and then whatever the trends we need to follow. As part of that, it is our constant effort to keep ourselves well informed, and we see it as a responsibility to bring you insights, perspectives, and expert voices that can really navigate the ever-changing market landscape. Without taking much of our time, what I will do is basically I will ask our Vaishnavi to take to introduce you to the theme on which Mr. Varun is going to speak, and then I'll ask Gagan to take it forward by introducing the speaker. Thank you very much, and then I hope this would be definitely one more value addition from the Wealth First for all our clients. Thank you. Vaishnavi, for you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So I'm again warm welcome to all of you to the Investors Market Dialogue September 2025 edition again. So the theme that we're going to discuss today is one that actually touches every part of our lives, which is digitization of businesses. So over the past decade, digitization has moved from just being a buzzword to actually becoming the backbone of how a lot of companies today operate and how consumers like us engage. So if you think about it, whether it's Zomato or Blinkit changing how we order things, food, groceries, everything, Policy Bazaar, which is actually redefining how we buy insurance, or the payment apps that we use every single day. So these businesses are no longer just new age, they have actually become part of the fabric of everyday life. So it's equally transforming enterprise technology as well, financial services, logistics, and industrial processes, making digital adoption a core driver of growth across a lot of sectors. So, and importantly, the companies leading this shift are often high growth businesses with very scalable models and expanding the addressable markets of them as well. So what's exciting from an investor's perspective is that this transformation is not just a trend and it's actually structural and inevitable. So as India moves towards becoming a $1 trillion digital economy, businesses across industries are being reshaped by technology, platforms, and ecosystems. So from financial services to consumer products, from enterprise software to e-commerce, digitization is fundamentally changing business models and creating opportunities at a scale that we've never seen before. So for investors, this means two things. First, digitization is not optional and companies have to adapt or else they're risk being left behind. And second, it actually opens a long-term investment theme that goes beyond traditional IT services. So this is exactly what we're here to explore today, how this shift is unfolding, where the opportunities lie, and how investors like us can position ourselves to actually benefit from all of the India's digital growth story. So I'll hand it over to you, Gagan, to introduce the speaker.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Morning, everybody. Thank you for being a part of this call on a Saturday morning. Gives me immense happiness and pleasure to introduce our guest today, Mr. Varun Sharma. Varun is the Executive Group Vice President, the fund manager at the fund management at Motilal Oswal, where he is the fund manager of Motilal Oswal Digital Fund and Innovation Fund. So he brings more than 15 years experience in equity research and fund management, also having worked with leading institutions such as ICICI Security Franklin, where he was also managing technology fund. His academic background includes PGDM. He's an alumni of IIM Kolkata, and he's a CFA L3 candidate. He's also an author of the book Valuation Asymmetry, which is all about valuing new economy, internet and digital technology companies where conventional methods may fall short. So with the breadth of his experience in this space and background, we believe he is a perfect person to be speaking on this topic. So while we interact with a lot of fund managers, so what unique thing we found about Varun was one of the person who was very much quant driven. So yes, that's what we felt, that Varun will add a lot of value to our set of investors, and then we really think that Varun is somebody that all of our investors should listen to. So yeah, the specific format of the call would be around 40 minutes. Varun will talk about the theme, and then we open the floor for Q&A for 15 minutes. The participants can type your questions in the chat box along as we go. So over to you, Varun. We are so happy to have you on board. We are hoping to have some meaningful learning from this call. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gagan and Vaishnavi, for your kind words. See, what we'll do is first we will talk about the basics, very basics of technology, and then we will move into the digital fund as such. So let me just see if I can use a whiteboard here, then it will be useful. Is this whiteboard visible?
Yes, Varun.
Okay, perfect. So see, the first thing that we have to keep in mind is that IT services is not digital. And I will explain why. When we are talking about digital, this thing is very different from IT services. And हम लोगों के सामने usually ये challenge ये रहा है that in India we have confused these two and we think that these two things are the same. And I will explain to you how this is different. See, उससे पहले हम लोग एक बेसिक फंडामेंटल डिफरेंस समझने की कोशिश करते हैं which is not very apparent to everyone. See, sectoral funds and thematic funds are two different things. There is something called as a sector and there is something called as a theme. मैं आपको इसके एग्जांपल्स दूंगा तो ये थोड़ा क्लियर होगा. जब हम बोलते हैं सेक्टर, तो सेक्टर की जो कंपनीज होती हैं वो ब्रॉडली सिमिलर होती हैं, सेक्टर या सब सेक्टर. तो अगर हमने बोला कि बैंकिंग एक सेक्टर है, राइट, तो उसमें आपका आ गया ICICI. What I'll do is I'll just for a while stop my video. It will get easier for me to type here. तो जैसे हमने बोला कि बैंकिंग एक सेक्टर है, तो उसमें आपका ICICI आ गया, HDFC आ गया, एक्सिस आ गया, राइट, यस बैंक आ गया. हमें पता है इनकी जो ब्रॉडली सर्विसेज हैं वो बहुत सिमिलर हैं. वी आर नॉट सेइंग कि 100% सेम है, बट ये लोग 80 to 90% सिमिलर काम करते हैं. तो ये सेक्टर हो गया. अगर हमने सिमिलरली अगर हमने 4 व्हीलर्स ले लिया, ऑटो ले लिया, तो ऑटो में भी क्या है, आपकी जो लार्जर कंपनीज हैं जैसे मारुति हो गया, Hyundai हो गया, या M&M हो गया, ये लोग, इनके जो बिजनेसेस हैं वो काफ़ी सिमिलर हैं. ऑल्दो M&M इज़ अ कॉन्ग्लोमरेट तो वो थोड़ा डिफरेंट हो जाता है, लेकिन लार्जली सिमिलर एरिया में फोकस है. या अगर हम 2 व्हीलर्स में आते हैं तो हमारे पास 2 व्हीलर्स में हो गया बजाज, हीरो, और हमने ले लिया TVS. तो ये सिमिलर हो गए. अगर हम FMCG में आते हैं और हमने बोला HUL, PNG, डाबर, तो इन लोगों के भी बहुत मेजर, गोदरेज कंज्यूमर, इन लोगों के बिजनेसेस में भी बहुत मेजर ओवरलैप है, तो ये सेक्टर हो गया. ऐसे ही हम आते हैं IT सर्विसेज में. अब IT सर्विसेज में जैसे TCS हो गया, इन्फोसिस हो गया, HCL हो गया, विप्रो हो गया, टेक महिंद्रा हो गया, अब छोटी कंपनीज हो गई, LTI माइंट्री हो गया, कोफोर्ज हो गया, परसिस्टेंट हो गया, राइट. सो लार्जली ये लोग एक काम करते हैं जिसको हम लार्जली ब्रॉडली डिफाइन करते हैं, जिसमें होता है कस्टम एप्लीकेशन, किसी के लिए कस्टम एप्लीकेशन बनाना, जो कि आजकल बहुत छोटा काम रह गया है. 20 years बैक ये काम बहुत बड़ा होता था. मतलब दिस यूज टू बी समथिंग लाइक 70-80% ऑफ द वर्क. दिस हैज गॉन डाउन टू नाउ 15-20%. ये कोर टेक्नोलॉजी काम है, कस्टम एप्लीकेशन बनाना. फिर होता है एप्लीकेशन मेंटेनेंस, कि भाई सिटी बैंक है या वॉलमार्ट है, उनके लिए हमने एप्लीकेशन मेंटेनेंस कर ली, जो ऐप इंस्टॉल्ड है। या होता है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मैनेजमेंट, जिसमें कि उनके लैपटॉप्स, माउस, सर्वर, डेटा सेंटर, ये सब मैनेज करना। फिर एक काम होता है बीपीओ। वो तो हम सबको पता ही है कि इंडियन कंपनीज जो हैं बीपीओ का काम भी काफ़ी करते हैं। और एक मेजर काम होता है जिसको टेस्टिंग बोलते हैं, कि भाई ऐप बन गई है या कोई चल रही है ऐप या कुछ सिस्टम इंटीग्रेट किया है तो उसकी टेस्टिंग करो। और फाइनली एक सिस्टम इंटीग्रेशन का काम होता है कि डिफरेंट डिफरेंट ऐप्स हैं उनको इंटीग्रेट करो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में। एक एचआर की ऐप है और ये से। तो ये आपका आईटी सर्विसेज सेक्टर हो गया। थीम जो होती है, जब हम थीम की बात करते हैं तो थीम सेक्टर से डिफरेंट होती है। जैसे कि अगर हमने बोला मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एक थीम है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग थीम में इट्स अ डाइवर्सिफाइड थीम, डाइवर्सिफाइड होती है। सी जब हम सेक्टर बोलते हैं तो सेक्टर में क्या होता है कि अगर आरबीआई ने एम्बार्गो लगा दिया कि भाई अगर न्यू सेविंग अकाउंट अब आप नहीं बना सकते तो इन सबको इम्पैक्ट होगा। या अगर कोई टू व्हीलर नॉर्म्स आ गए तो इन सारी कंपनीज को इम्पैक्ट होगा सेक्टर की। या एफएमसीजी में उन्होंने किसी पर्टिकुलर सेगमेंट में जीएसटी बढ़ा दिया, या कहीं पे इनपुट कॉस्ट बढ़ गई, सोप्स की कॉस्ट हो गई, तो इन सबको इम्पैक्ट होगा। सिमिलरली आईटी सर्विसेज सेक्टर, अगर H1B का इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट हो गया या कुछ क्रिएट हो गया तो ऑल दीज कंपनीज विल गेट इम्पैक्टेड, सो बिकॉज दे बिलोंग टू अ सेक्टर। अगर कल को इंडिया में सप्लाई मैन पावर मिलनी बंद हो गई, कम कम पड़ गई, तो इन सबको इम्पैक्ट होगा। बट जब हम थीम की बात करते हैं तो थीम इज मल्टी सेक्टोरल, थीम इज अ डाइवर्सिफाइड प्ले ऑलवेज। ये हमें कंफ्यूजन क्लियर करना है। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इज अ थीम, डिजिटल इज अ थीम। अब मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कहने को सेक्टर लगता है, लेकिन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में देखिए क्या क्या आता है। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में ऑटो भी आता है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में कैप गुड्स भी आता है, मैन्युफैक्चर जहाँ भी इंडस्ट्री लग रही है मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में ईएमएस भी आएगा। अब ईएमएस में भी स्प्लिट्स हैं, कोई एसी कर रहा है सिर्फ, कोई डाइवर्सिफाइड काम कर रहा है, कोई वॉशिंग मशीन भी बना रहा है, और कोई स्पेसिफिकली सिर्फ एप्पल के लिए आईफोन्स में कुछ कर रहा है। सिमिलरली कैप गुड्स में तो बहुत स्प्लिट्स आते हैं, कहीं पावर है, कहीं ईपीसी है। ऑटो में भी हमने अभी दो स्प्लिट तो देख लिए। तो ऐसे ही मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में बहुत सारी चीज़ें हो सकती हैं, राइट। इंडस्ट्री में कुछ हो सकता है। सो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बिकम्स अ थीम, इट इज़ नॉट अ सेक्टर। सिमिलरली अब हम आते हैं डिजिटल पे। डिजिटल क्या है, राइट, वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस वेरी वेल। डिजिटल ये है कि इंडिया में बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स हैं। जैसे आपका बैंकिंग है, हमने जैसे भी ऊपर डिस्कस किया, रिटेल है, ट्रैवल है, इंश्योरेंस है, आपका अब ट्रैवल में भी मल्टीपल, लेकिन हम मल्टीपल हैं लेकिन हम इसको अभी साथ में रखते हैं। मीडिया है, मीडिया और क्लासिफाइड जिनको हम बोलते हैं, राइट। तो इंडिया के जितने भी सेक्टर्स हैं हम उनको वन बाय वन एनलिस्ट कर लेते हैं। ऑटो है, एफएमसीजी और रिटेल को हम अभी के लिए साथ में ले लेते हैं। फूड है, और भी अगर किसी को माइंड में हो कुछ डालने का तो बता देना, यहाँ पे मैं ऐड करता रहूँगा। तो हम मल्टीपल सेक्टर्स को हम ऐड कर रहे हैं। अ, अब रियल एस्टेट में तो खैर डिजिटल, रियल एस्टेट में भी डिजिटल अपॉर्चुनिटी है, पर वो क्लासिफाइड्स के थ्रू कैप्चर हो जाती है। सो अब हम क्या बोल रहे हैं कि अब हम इंडिया में बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स हैं। ट्रेडिशनली ये जितने भी सेक्टर्स हैं ये एक नॉन टेक प्लेयर जनरली मैनेज कर रहे थे, और अब यहाँ पे वी आर सीइंग वन बाय वन टेक प्लेयर्स आर गेटिंग इनटू इट। अब ये जो टेक प्लेयर्स हैं ये भी दो दो एंगल्स में एंटर कर रहे हैं। चाहे वो एक होता है B2C, जैसे वैष्णवी ने बोला, और फिर B2B। अब हम इसको समझते हैं इसमें क्या हो रहा है। देखिए बैंकिंग में तो आपके HDFC, ICICI और NBFCs भी आ गए, बजाज वगैरह, राइट। वो लोग तो टू सम एक्सटेंट टेक्नोलॉजी यूज़ करते हैं। लेकिन अब क्या हुआ कि अच्छा, इसमें भी हमें एक चीज़ को समझने की ज़रूरत है। जब हम टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करते हैं या डिजिटल की बात करते हैं, तो ये जो कंपनीज होती हैं, ये कंपनीज टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज़ करके सेक्टर में जाते हैं। बाकी जो जैसे एग्जिस्टिंग प्लेयर्स होते हैं या जो ट्रेडिशनल कंपनीज होती हैं, वो सेक्टर को बिलोंग करते हैं और वो उसी सेक्टर में टेक्नोलॉजी यूज़ करने की कोशिश करते हैं। अब B2C में क्या हुआ, बैंकिंग में या फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज में आ गया पेटीएम, मोबीक्विक, ऐसे आ गए। कुछ लोग B2B में चले गए, जैसे रेजर पे हो गया, जिसने कि वो बनाया है, अपना पेमेंट गेटवे बनाया है। पाइन लैब्स हो गया। ऐसे रिटेल FMCG में जो पहले कंपनीज थी, हमें FMCG कंपनीज तो पता ही हैं, और रिटेल में डी मार्ट है, राइट, आदित्य विजन है, ऐसे हैं। और हमारा यहाँ पे जो खड़े हो गए B2C में जो कंपनीज खड़ी हो गई, वो हो गया आपका ब्लिंकिट, या जेप्टो हो गया, या इंस्टामार्ट हो गया। और B2B में भी कंपनीज आ गई, जैसे इंफ्रा मार्केट। दे आर डूइंग नथिंग बट रिटेल ऑफ स्टफ। कोई इंफ्रा मार्केट से कर रहा है, कोई मीशो से कर रहा है। मीशो B2B2C हो गया। ऐसे ही ट्रैवल में जो पुरानी कंपनीज हैं आपकी, वो आपको याद होगा, थॉमस कुक करके होता था, वहां जाके लोग बुक करते थे, या कॉक्स एंड किंग्स होता था, या मेरू होता था। अब उसमें भी B2C में बहुत सारे आ गए। ट्रैवल में मल्टीपल वो हैं, जिसमें आपके पास उबर है, ओला है, मेक माई ट्रिप है, यात्रा है। ये आ गए टेक्नोलॉजी लेड प्लेयर्स। और B2B में बहुत सारे आ गए, जैसे रेट गेन है, जो कि होटल्स को हेल्प करता है, या टीबीओ टेक है, जो कि एजेंट्स को हेल्प करता है। तो ये टेक्नोलॉजी प्लेयर्स हैं, इन्होंने प्लेटफॉर्म्स बनाए हैं। इन लोगों ने प्लेटफॉर्म्स नहीं बनाए, ये ट्रेडिशनल प्लेयर्स हैं। मीडिया में आपको पता है, सारे प्रिंट मीडिया कंपनीज होती थी, न्यूज़पेपर्स होते थे। अब उसकी जगह, न्यूज़पेपर्स की जगह, अब आप हम यूज़ करते हैं, जैसे इन्फो एज है, तो उसका न्यूज़पेपर्स में क्लासिफाइड्स आते थे, जॉब के, मैट्रिमोनियल्स के, सब। तो इन्फो एज के पास मैट्रिमोनियल, जॉब वगैरह सब है। B2B
Varun,
में,
Varun,
हाँ,
a small request. Can you please use both the language, Hindi and English?
हाँ, मैं मिक्स कर रहा हूँ।
Yeah.
तो अब जैसे इन्फो एज के पास क्या है, इन्फो एज के पास नौकरी है, उनके पास जीवन साथी है। तो पहले ये सब चीज़ें हमें न्यूज़पेपर्स में मिलती थी, कि नौकरी का ऐड आ रहा है, या मैट्रिमनी का ऐड आ रहा है। ऐसे B2B मीडिया क्लासिफाइड्स भी बन गए। ऑटो में अभी टेक थोड़ा कम है, क्योंकि एग्जिस्टिंग कंपनीज ही कर रही हैं, तो यहाँ पे अभी डिजिटल प्लेयर्स कम आए हैं। ऐसे ही फूड में तो हमने देख ही लिया है, फूड सर्विसेज। पहले रेस्टोरेंट्स खुद डिलीवर करते थे, अब आपके पास ऐप्स हैं, जैसे कि जोमेटो है या स्विगी है, ऐसी ऐप्स हैं। मैं आपको ये इसलिए समझा रहा हूँ कि हमें ये समझने की ज़रूरत है कि पहली चीज़, सेक्टोरल और थीमेटिक में डिफरेंस होता है। IT सर्विसेज सेक्टर है, डिजिटल थीम है, डिजिटल डाइवर्सिफाइड है। और ये जो पोर्शन है सारा, ये हमारा डिजिटल है, जिसके ऊपर हम फोकस करते हैं। तो आपको ये समझने की ज़रूरत है कि हम लोग किस चीज़ के ऊपर फोकस कर रहे हैं। हमारा फोकस IT सर्विसेज नहीं है, हमें ये नहीं चाहिए, और मैं आपको अब उसका रीज़न समझाता हूँ क्यों। देखिए, अगर हम अर्ली 2000s में जाएं, तो ब्रॉडली जो ग्लोबल IT सर्विसेज इंडस्ट्री होती थी, जिसमें आपका IBM, एक्सेंचर, HP, DXC, ये सब आता था, वो होती थी कुछ $400 ट्रिलियन की। और जो इंडियन IT सर्विसेज इंडस्ट्री थी, वो उस टाइम पे छोटी थी, वो होते थे कुछ 10 बिलियन। अब ये इंडस्ट्री ओवर द इयर्स, अगर आप ग्रोथ रेट देखोगे ग्लोबल, जिसमें आपका HP, DXC, कैप जेमिनाई, IBM, एक्सेंचर सब आ जाते हैं, तो ये जो इंडस्ट्री है, ये ऑन एन एवरेज कुछ 4% से ही ग्रो करी है, 4 या 5%। और ये इंडस्ट्री हो गई है 1 ट्रिलियन, 1000 बिलियन। जो इंडियन IT सर्विसेज इंडस्ट्री है, जिसमें आपका इन्फोसिस, TCS और ये सब आता है, ये लोग ज़्यादा रेट पे ग्रो करे। और ये लोग पहले एक टाइम पे ग्रो करते थे 50%, फिर हुआ वो 40, फिर हुआ 30। ये मैं बात कर रहा हूँ 2000 से 2025। 30 का फिर 20 हुआ, फिर 10 हुआ। अब करते करते, क्योंकि ये पेनिट्रेशन स्टोरी थी, तो अब ये 5 में आ गए हैं, जो कि मोर और लेस इन लाइन है, क्योंकि ये इंडस्ट्री 3 से 4 ग्रो कर रहे हैं, ये 5 से 6 या 7 ग्रो कर रहे हैं। बट वो इसलिए हुआ क्योंकि अब ये अगर यहाँ पे देवर ओनली 2.5% of the market, today they have become 25% of the global market. Indian IT services, our companies have become very, very big, 25% of the global market in revenue and almost 50% in volumes और headcount, मतलब number of employees जो IT services में हैं. तो आप अगर 50% पहुंच गए हो तो just one second ना, तो अगर अगर आप अगर पहले ग्लोबल इंडस्ट्री 4% पे ग्रो करती थी और आप ग्रो कर पाते थे 50, 40, 30, क्योंकि आप छोटे थे. अब जब आप बड़े हो गए हो, जब आप इतने बड़े हो गए हो कि आप 50% ऑफ वॉल्यूम्स हो, तो आप ग्लोबल इंडस्ट्री से बहुत ज़्यादा ग्रोथ नहीं कर सकते. इसीलिए अगर आप देखेंगे हमारी जो लार्जर कंपनीज हैं उनके ग्रोथ रेट्स बहुत कम हो गए हैं. वो ग्रोथ रेट्स इसलिए कम नहीं हुए हैं क्योंकि बिजनेस नहीं है या कुछ नहीं है. ग्रोथ रेट इसलिए कम हुए क्योंकि ग्लोबल इंडस्ट्री इसी रेट पे ग्रो करती है और अब आप बहुत बड़े हो गए हो. हमने ये प्रॉब्लम जो थी पहले आइडेंटिफाई कर ली थी. इसीलिए हमने कभी भी, जब मैं पहला वाला फंड भी अपना मैनेज कर रहा था, फ्रैंकलिन इंडिया टेक्नोलॉजी फंड, कि हमें आईटी सर्विसेज में पैसा अब नहीं रखना. क्योंकि अगर आप लॉन्ग टर्म रिटर्न्स बनाना चाहते हो तो लॉन्ग टर्म रिटर्न्स कंपनी ग्रोथ से आते हैं. और आज की डेट में डिजिटल वहाँ है. अगर इंडिया का हम नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट देखें, जो कि सारे सेक्टर्स का ग्रोथ रेट है, तो हम 10% से ग्रो कर सकते हैं नॉमिनल. वैसे हम 6, 7, 8% से ग्रो करते हैं जो रियल होता है, लेकिन अगर हम नॉमिनल देखें तो आप 10% से ग्रो कर सकते हैं. लेकिन डिजिटल आज बहुत छोटा है. डिजिटल आज सिर्फ 5% है इकोनॉमी का, उसको जाना है 50%. ये भी हम डिस्कस करेंगे. लेकिन क्योंकि उसने 5 का 50 जाना है, तो वो 4x, 3x, 2x ऑफ द नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ डिजिटल इकोसिस्टम ग्रो कर सकता है, जो कि हमने यहाँ पे डिस्कस किया. ये डिजिटल इकोसिस्टम टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज. तो जो आईटी सर्विसेज आज से 20 साल 25 साल पहले था, वो आज डिजिटल है. अब अगर हम लोग फैक्टर रिटर्न्स को देखेंगे, देखिए हम जब स्टॉक रिटर्न्स बनाते हैं उसके सिर्फ दो ही फैक्टर्स हैं. एक फैक्टर है बिजनेस ग्रोथ और दूसरा फैक्टर है वैल्यूएशंस. सो वन फैक्टर इज बिजनेस ग्रोथ फॉर स्टॉक रिटर्न्स एंड द अदर फैक्टर इज वैल्यूएशंस. बिजनेस ग्रोथ या बिजनेस स्केल का जो फैक्टर्स होते हैं उसको हम मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स यूज करते हैं. किसी कंपनीज में, कुछ कंपनीज में हम अर्निंग्स यूज करते हैं, तो उसका वैल्यूएशन फैक्टर होता है पीई. पीई मोस्ट कॉमन वैल्यूएशन मेथड है. किसी
Varun,
कंपनी में
I'll
हम लोग
just take a minute over here. A lot of participants in the call are English-speaking participants, so we just request you to kindly switch to English.
I'll do that,
Thank you.
sure. So see, there are only two factors of stock returns. One is the business scale and one is valuations. Now, if the business scale is measured by earnings, we use a multiple called PE. If business scale is measured by EBITDA, we use EV to EBITDA. If business scale is measured by capacity, we use EV to capacity. If business scale is measured by, let's say, free cash flow, we can use price to free cash flow, or we can use a DCF. In internet companies, the business scale is measured by the scale of business, which is essentially two things. One thing is the revenue or the sales number, and second is market share. I'm putting it very simply for you because our models are very, very complicated and complex, but I'm making it very simple for you that these are the two metrics that we use: sales, market share. These are the convenience metrics. Obviously, we go in a lot of detail in terms of understanding the company, but in case of internet companies, these are the two things that we have to use. Now, if you look at some of the digital companies, and Jogendra, first I'll stop here. I want you to show that third slide in our presentation.
Sure. Just 1 minute. Let me upload. You are able to see the screen?
It's loading. Come down. Come down further. One more. So I want all of you to focus on what I just discussed earlier. See, this portion, the traditional industry, IT services अब traditional हो गया है. So what we have to focus on is that, give me 1 second, can I type on this? Yes. So हमारा जो जीडीपी ग्रोथ होता है ये एक ट्रेडिशनल इंडस्ट्री है और ये इस इंडस्ट्री का 5 ईयर ग्रोथ रेट है. जैसे आईटी सर्विसेज पिछले 5 साल में 7.4% CAGR से ग्रो करा है. मीडिया इंडस्ट्री 7.5, पेमेंट्स इंडस्ट्री 9.7, इंश्योरेंस 12.2% CAGR लास्ट 5 ईयर. और इंडिया का नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट क्या रहा है? अराउंड 8%. So more or less every industry has grown broadly in line with the nominal GDP growth. Now, in all these industries, you saw various digital and technology players coming in the form of SaaS, which is MapMyIndia, which is RateGain, in the form of B2B online platform TBO Tech. IT services को disrupt कर रहा है software, which is eMudra. Media industry को disrupt कर रहा है Affle digital ads. मीडिया इंडस्ट्री को इन्फोएज भी डिसरप्ट कर रहा है ऑनलाइन क्लासिफाइड्स. पेमेंट्स को डिसरप्ट कर रहा है पेटीएम फिनटेक. एफएमसीजी को फूड टेक. सो नाउ वन बाय वन यू लुक एट द कंपनी ग्रोथ हेयर. फॉर एग्जांपल, जहां पे आईटी सर्विसेज का लास्ट 5 ईयर रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ 7.54% CAGR है, वहां पे मैपमा इंडिया का रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ 5 ईयर का 22.9% CAGR है. एवरी ईयर 22.9%, which is 3 times the growth rate of the industry. Similarly, लास्ट 5 ईयर्स में मीडिया इंडस्ट्री का ग्रोथ रेट 7.5% CAGR है, लेकिन एप्पल का ग्रोथ रेट है 49.2%. 49.2% एवरी ईयर ग्रोथ. ऑल्दो विद सम एक्विजिशंस, अगर हम एक्विजिशंस हटा दें तो 25% ग्रोथ है हर साल ऑर्गेनिकली, विच इज 3.5 times द ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ मीडिया इंडस्ट्री. अगर हम इंश्योरेंस को देखें तो इंश्योरेंस का 12.2% CAGR ग्रोथ रेट है पिछले 5 साल में. एंड पॉलिसी बाजार का ग्रोथ रेट CAGR हर साल है 47.5%, ऑल ऑर्गेनिक. जोमैटो का ग्रोथ रेट है 12.2%. सॉरी, जोमैटो नहीं, एफएमसीजी इंडस्ट्री का और फूड का ग्रोथ रेट है 12.2%. जोमैटो का ग्रोथ रेट है 56% CAGR फॉर द लास्ट 5 ईयर्स. कुडोस टू देयर एक्विजिशन ऑफ ब्लिंकिट. तो पहले हम इस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करते हैं कि लेट मी शेयर माय स्क्रीन नाउ अगेन. तो जो हमने डिस्कस किया कि 2 फैक्टर्स हैं स्टॉक रिटर्न्स के. पहला है स्टॉक रिटर्न्स और दूसरा है वैल्यूएशंस. तो हमें पता है कि ये जो बिजनेस ग्रोथ है और जो स्केल है ये डिजिटल कंपनीज में सबसे ज्यादा हो रहा है. ऑन एन एवरेज डिजिटल इकोसिस्टम इज ग्रोइंग एट 30 to 35% CAGR. अब आता है नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, वैल्यूएशंस का. जैसे गगन ने बताया, द वे गगन डिस्कस्ड, I have written a book. It's called Valuation Asymmetry. Okay. Now, what I am saying is that in this, I have discussed in detail that how we should think about valuing these companies. But however, the important thing is that मैं आपको शॉर्ट में बताता हूं कि ये वैल्यूएशंस को कैसे अंडरस्टैंड करना है. I'll explain to you in simple terms. See, traditionally, the life cycle of companies is like this, that when they are small, they grow very fast, and then over time, the growth rates diminish. When companies are small, they grow very fast, and then growth rates start to diminish. And so initially they might be in a bit of losses, but then they turn profitable and then the profitability grows like this. तो आपने देखा होगा that most of the larger companies in India are quite profitable. You think about Nifty 50 companies, TCS, Infosys, Reliance, right? HDFC. They are very, very profitable, all these companies. They generate a lot of cash, right? M&M, Maruti. Lekin their growth rates are lower than large cap growth rates in general are lower than mid caps. And mid cap growth rates in general are lower than small caps. This is also seen. So that is why small cap valuations are higher. Mid cap valuations are lower than small caps in general. And large cap valuations are the lowest. Simply because valuations are a function of growth. It's a double-edged sword in the sense that when your growth is higher, your valuations are highest. When your growth starts to come down, your valuations actually come down. ये आपने इन्फोसिस टीसीएस के बारे में भी देखा होगा. इन्फोसिस टीसीएस आज की डेट में कुछ 20 टाइम्स पी पे हैं और कोफोर्ज और परसिस्टेंट है 40 टाइम्स पे या लेट्स से 35 टाइम्स पे. उसका रीजन ये है दैट पीई मस्ट नॉट बी यूज्ड. व्हाट वी हैव टू यूज इज पीई That means PE compared with the growth of the company. जब कंपनीज की ग्रोथ ज़्यादा होती है उनकी वैल्यूएशन ज़्यादा होती हैं. जब कंपनीज की ग्रोथ कम हो जाती है तो उनकी वैल्यूएशंस कम हो जाती हैं. Simply because, as I told you, there are only two factors of stock returns. One is growth और scale and second is valuations. अगर आप लोग एविडेंस देखेंगे पीछे का जाके तो आपको ये पता चलेगा valuations are actually a headwind. Over the years, valuations actually depress returns by anywhere between 2 to 5% if the businesses remain what they are. So ये तो आपके against है. ये आपके stock returns को depress करेगा, नीचे लेके जाएगा. It's a negative. क्योंकि आपने ये चीज empirically भी देखी होगी. You would have seen this empirically also that as companies become bigger, their valuations go down. So the only way which is positive for stock returns, how to make stock returns is to focus on growth. And growth is where? Is it in IT? No. It's in digital, which is core tech businesses. Now, the question that all of you may have is that how do we really value these digital companies? See, the digital companies move like this. They grow very fast and they continue to grow, continue to grow, continue to grow. Now, this is a very, very counterintuitive thing, but I will give you a sense. Microsoft today is revenue of $220 billion. And it is expected to grow 15% CAGR for the next 5 years. Can you imagine? At $220 billion of revenue. Apple expected to grow 12% CAGR. So these companies know that as we become big, we are going to make a lot of money. So they grow in a hyper aggressive growth manner. But then they remain unprofitable for a long time. And then suddenly the profits pick up like this. And this is the typical life cycle of any tech company. But net, if we will keep a longer term view, let's say if we keep a 15-year view, then we know that this hyper growth and profits will merge, or maybe profit growth will be higher than revenue growth. And we will show you some data around this. Yogendra, can you show your screen again? Just go down to the US companies' growth rates. See, if you now look at US companies, you will see, give me 1 second. If you look at the US companies, you will see that people had problems with most of these companies being unprofitable. Give me 1 second. most of these companies being unprofitable initially. But you see their revenue growth CAGR for 15 years and you see their operating PAT growth CAGRs for 15 years. We have not taken net PAT because net PAT CAGRs are even higher. Right? Across all these companies, this has happened. And look at the stock price returns. Stock price returns in the long term will only mirror business growth. And look here, non-tech companies. Look at their growth rates. Look at their PAT growth rates and look at their stock price CAGRs. So we have to understand and appreciate that valuing tech companies is a very, very different game. It's not the same as valuing any traditional companies. And इसमें सबसे बड़ा challenge ये है that we as an industry have not evolved to understand how to value tech companies. And we cannot blame anyone because Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger missed this wave. They could never understand how to value these tech companies, so they never invested in them. But it has been a big, big loss for them. Let me show you something. Jogendra, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Let me know when my screen is visible.
It's loading actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
See, this is a very important data point. This is NASDAQ 100 composite, NASDAQ Tech 100 composite. This is Tech 100. Last 15 years में in the US, housing prices have gone up by 72%. Gold price in dollar terms has gone up by 120%. Cumulative, 15 years. Dow Jones has gone up by 162%. And US NASDAQ Tech 100 has gone up by almost 12 times. See, 1.7 times, 2.2 times, 2.6 times, and 12 times. Only because of one reason. Look at the chart on the right. Look at the business compounding that has happened in these tech companies versus the non-tech companies. And today, the largest of companies in the world are the tech companies. Now, coming back to what Vaishnavi was saying, tech is going to take over the world. Indian tech is going to take over India. And we are not realizing this. It took only 2 years for Blinkit to beat a company like DMart, which has been in existence for decades. And today, Blinkit is bigger than DMart, Zepto is bigger than DMart, and Instamart is also almost bigger than DMart. So today, Amazon is bigger than most of the biggest retail companies in the US. Walmart, $700 billion of GMV. Amazon is 1.2 trillion. The way Amazon reports is they only report their share in their own inventory. Otherwise, they are close to 1.2 trillion. Microsoft is way, way bigger than IBM. Salesforce is bigger than IBM. Apple is bigger than all your Nokias, Blackberries are all gone. Meta platform is bigger than News Corp. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that sector by sector, you will see that these tech companies will become bigger than their traditional counterparts, exactly the same way that has happened in the US. Now, where do we see an opportunity in India? That Indian digital ecosystem is very small. Till about 2022, we were only 5%. US and China were 22 and 27%. We were small because you have four pillars of digital ecosystem growth. And India, one is mobile phone, second is high-speed mobile internet, third is digital businesses, and fourth is financial ecosystem. US और चाइना में credit card usage and app usage, wallet usage बहुत ज़्यादा था. इंडिया में पिकअप ही नहीं हुआ वो. But with UPI, we have solved for it. Everyone is using UPI everywhere. So now Indian digital ecosystem is going to grow in an exponential manner and reach this 25-30% quickly. And that is where the opportunity is for us to benefit out of this business scale up that is happening. And that is why there is a need of this digital fund that we have. Now, I will explain the thought process behind our digital fund. Give me 1 second. So our digital fund comprises 3 portions. Okay. One is the way I explained to you, digital. Our focus is to keep this 60% of the fund. The second is IT services. Now you may say, why am I investing in IT services when it is low growth? So we have only high growth IT services. Now high growth IT services is found in mid caps and small caps. For example, Coforge, which is a large holding, is expected to grow anywhere around 30% this year. Persistent is expected to grow anywhere around 20% this year, and they will continue to do so for the next 4 or 5 years. So the ambit is growth, be it digital, be it IT services, but those companies which have a strategy to grow faster. See, it is almost like this, that this is a large ocean, which is IT services, right? Now, TCS is this big, Infosys is this, Accenture is this, but there are smaller guys who are going and attacking these and taking share away from them or someone else. So ये लोग बड़े हो सकते हैं, ये यहाँ जा सकते हैं, but इसके लिए यहाँ जाना भी high growth नहीं है. So that means we can buy into high growth IT services companies depending on their specific strategies. The final bucket, so we try to keep this around 25%. तो ये हो गया आपका total 85 high growth. Then we do turnaround stories. Companies that have had some hiccups because of which the stock prices and valuations have gone down and they can come back. Now this can be within digital or within IT services, that's fine. So this becomes 15%. This is the construct of our fund. Now I'll end with this, that we try to keep the compounding profile. Like I told you, we have 2 elements of stock returns. One is compounding and second is valuations. We know that this is going to be minus 5% CAGR for me. If I take a 10-year view on a stock, this is going to hurt my returns by 5% every year. So if we have to generate a 25%, the compounding profile needs to be 30%. So that plus 30 and minus 5 gives me 25%. You can use ChatGPT to load any fund on ChatGPT and say, give me 5-year, 3-year, last 1 year growth profile of this fund. So we are targeting this. Let's increase the compounding profile, because if I hold on to valuations and think valuations will improve, then I'm hoping that God will save me against all the evidence, which is not going to happen. And this is how we've constructed our fund. We focus on doing a 30% compounding in terms of revenue and EPS. If we take a 5-year, 10-year view, we know we are going to take a hit on valuations, and we try to generate higher returns using compounding rather than valuations. I will give you the evidence of this. Because the street misunderstands technology and digital, broadly in the last 1 year, the technology ecosystem has seen a 20% hit on valuations. Now, if you look at IT, NSE IT, it has given a negative 15% return. इसको हम कैसे ब्रेक डाउन करेंगे? -20 valuations, एंड 5% ग्रोथ, जो मैंने आपको बोला NSCIT का ग्रोथ है, मे बी 6% होगा. सो एंड नाउ लुक एट मोतीलाल ओसवाल डिजिटल फंड, राइट? We have also seen a 20% hit on valuations just because everything goes down together. Market is not understanding that IBM and Apple, IBM and Amazon are different. Similarly, TCS and Zomato are very different. Infosys and Policybazaar are very different. In fact, all the digital companies are very different from each other. बहुत सारी डिजिटल, जो हमारा फंड है उसमें कोई भी दो डिजिटल कंपनी सेम काम नहीं करती, बट जो आईटी फंड है उसमें सारी कंपनीज मोस्टली सेम काम करती हैं. एटलीस्ट 80 आईटी फंड्स जो होते हैं, विच आर मे बी बैडली रॉन्गली रीनेम्ड एज डिजिटल फंड, सम ऑफ देम, उसमें 80% ऑफ द वर्क ऑफ कंपनीज इज द सेम. We don't have more than a 10% overlap. In fact, Coforge and somebody has asked this question, Coforge and Persistent are doing very different work. Persistent is completely on the higher side, digital side. Coforge is completely on the back end side. Then Coforge gets 60% of revenues from ex-US, Persistent gets 80% of revenues from US, right? So they're very different. Now we have also taken a 20% hit on valuations, but because our portfolio has compounded by 25%, we are positive 5%. To put it in simple numbers. Now, I don't know if this valuation will rebound or not. If it does, it's good for us. But if there is no further hit on valuations, our portfolio should get the benefit of business compounding always. This is what the focus of our fund is. I'll stop here. If you have any questions, we'll take those.
Thank you so much, Varun. It was quite comprehensive. Um, we just have a couple of questions, but before we get to the questions, I would like you to just throw some light on the risk funneling part of it, what we discussed the other day, from the global level to the granular macro level in company level, what we discussed. So can you just spend some 2 to 3 minutes highlighting that?
Sure. So see, generally we feel that digital ecosystem is high risk. We should understand that risk is actually in this ecosystem is very low. When we talk about risks, there should be a framework of risks. And that framework suggests that we should look at risk, global risk. When I talk about IT services and I talk about digital, IT services is 99% exports. Digital, if you look at India, it is almost 70 to 80% domestic. India. ये सब इंडिया में तो काम कर रहे हैं मोस्टली, बीट पेटीएम, जोमेटो, पॉलिसी बाजार, ई मुद्रा, लार्जली डोमेस्टिक है. कुछ लोग हैं एक्सपोर्ट्स में. तो हमारे लिए द ग्लोबल रिस्क एलिमिनेट हो जाता है, बहुत कम हो जाता है, राइट? सो दैट इज वेरी लो. आईटी सर्विसेज में ये ग्लोबल रिस्क इज हाई. बट देन यू माइट से कि अगर ग्लोबल यहाँ पे ज़्यादा हाई है तो अगर डोमेस्टिक रिस्क हायर होगा. आईटी सर्विसेज में डोमेस्टिक रिस्क नहीं है ज़्यादा, अपार्ट फ्रॉम लेट्स से सप्लाई, कि भाई कैंडिडेट्स मिल रहे हैं नहीं काम करने के लिए, वो तो सप्लाई काफ़ी अच्छी है. तो मतलब यहाँ पे 70-80% डोमेस्टिक रिस्क है, वो भी नहीं है. क्योंकि देखिए, हम ये पेनिट्रेशन स्टोरी है. अगर हम ये अज्यूम कर लें कि इंडिया का नॉमिनल जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट नेक्स्ट 10 ईयर जीरो रहता है, तो भी डिजिटल इकोसिस्टम विल ग्रो एट 20% CAGR, विच मीन्स दैट ऑल आर इनकम्स रिमेन स्टैटिक. आज आपकी जो इनकम है, मेरी जो इनकम है, हम सबकी इनकम 10 साल तक नहीं बढ़ेगी, फिर भी हम अपनी इनकम का ज़्यादा प्रोपोर्शन ऑनलाइन स्पेंड करेंगे, बिकॉज वी आर एट 5% in terms of penetration, and we have to go to 30, then eventually 40, then eventually 50, because we are spending 50% of our waking time online on devices. And where the consumer is, where the transactions will go. So ये वाला एलिमेंट भी रिस्क में नहीं है. थर्ड होता है सेक्टोरल. ना जैसे हमने डिस्कस किया, आईटी तो पूरा सेक्टर ही 90% सिमिलर है, तो दिस रिस्क इज हाई. बट जैसे मैंने आपको बोला, हमारा सेक्टोरल रिस्क भी नहीं है. जब आरबीआई ने गाइडलाइन दी कि अनसिक्योर्ड लेंडिंग को कम करो, तो सारे एनबीएफसीज और बैंक को इम्पैक्ट हुआ, पेटीएम को भी इम्पैक्ट हुआ, बट उसका कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं था जोमेटो पे या ई मुद्रा पे या रेट गेन पे. नो इम्पैक्ट. सो देर इज एक्चुअली वेरी लो sector correlation. There was no impact. So there is very low sector correlation risk. The final risk is concentration risk. Now, in some of the IT services funds, and Infosys will be 25%, TCS will be 20%, फिर Wipro HCL मिला के 65 या 70% of the fund, 70% of the fund, or let's say concentration 25% is one company, 20% is another company. अब ये 25% और ये 20% 4 साल से कुछ रिटर्न नहीं दिया है. It's given no returns. We keep our exposures limited to at max 10% per company, which means that if my largest company also does not give any returns, I am less exposed to the concentration risk. So अगर आप global risk देखोगे, that's very low. If you look at domestic risk, it's nothing because it's a penetration story. Sectoral risk is very low. Concentration risk we have managed. So unlike the contrary belief that digital is very risky, digital is actually the highest growth and the safest portfolio out there for us. Think of it as buying Nasdaq or Nasdaq Tech 100 or buying FANG stocks in 2007, 8, 9. People thought they're very risky, but they turned out to be the safest bets. आज आप और मैं जी भी नहीं सकते. We cannot survive without US tech. How much more safe can it be? You and I can survive without Citibank. We can survive without Walmart. We can survive without GE. We can survive without any company in the US which might have gone global, but we cannot survive without the US tech. And half of this world cannot survive without US tech. That's the kind of risk diversification, or that's the kind of safety these companies have provided to their investors. Yes, Gagan, tell me. I can't hear you. You are on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for covering that. One of the questions what we received from one of the participants was, can you revisit the benchmark comparisons once again for last 12 and 24 months for IT and IT services versus digital and um, index services?
Benchmark comparisons.
Yeah.
I didn't get you.
I think he is asking on the EPS side of it and the valuation side of it. Can you just revisit last 12 to 24 months ka? Last 12 months will also suffice. Can you just show the numbers?
Give me a second.
Meanwhile,
Let
I
me know
request
when
the
my screen is.
participants
Let me
to.
know when my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. See, if we look at BSc Tech, these are the broad BSc Tech uh, components, which is Bharti, Infosys, TCS, HCL Tech, Mahindra, Wipro, and all. If you look at last 5-year revenue growth, which is column P, last 5-year BSc Tech revenue growth is 14%, 3-year is 12, 1-year is 10. Now I want you to focus on the breakup of this. If you remove Bharti, which is not an IT services company, and you remove the high growth IT services companies like Coforge and Persistent, you will realize that NSCIT, which is the bottom portion, NSCIT does not have the likes of Bharti and all. You will realize that large cap IT has grown at an average of just 4% in last 1 year. 10% 5-year, 3-year is 8%, which means that growth rates in terms of revenues and both EPS are coming down. Just imagine an index like NSCIT, where EPS growth has been just 5% last year, 6% last 3 years, 5 years, 10%, which means their growth rates are coming down. And as a result, valuations are also coming off. But despite the reduction in prices, the valuations are actually going up. Prices have come down, valuations are going up. मैं आपको PEG दिखाता हूँ, the thing that I talked about. If you take last 5-year growth, then the PEG of NSCIT is 2.3. If you take last 3 years growth, the PEG of is 3.5. And if you take just last 1 year growth, the PEG is 5.5. Higher the PEG, higher are the valuations. Which means that despite these stocks, the larger company stocks not doing anything, they are becoming more and more expensive with time. Same thing with BSC Tech. Now, we usually run at a PEG in our fund, we usually run at a PEG of anywhere around 1.8 to 2 times. But we know growth is there. But the challenge with benchmarks is that the growth is not there. So if your EPS growth is just 5%, it takes 14 years to double your EPS. And if your EPS growth is 30% I'm saying of the portfolio, then it takes only 2.5 years to double your EPS. 14 years and 2.5 years. So you understand the compounding that is going to happen, and that is happening in the digital ecosystem versus the indices.
Yeah, Varun.
Yeah.
It is excellent presentation and new perspectives to all our investors. See, for conservative investors who are actually old school or whatever it is, right? The problem with all the digital companies, they are not profitable, right? And we understand your growth and other concepts, but unless these companies start making money and then we are confident of actually they making money, how do you see that? How do you identify a company which is going to grow but again become profitable? Ultimately, that's what is going to matter for the returns, right?
Sir, this statement was true 3 years back. Today, all the digital companies are profitable. Tell me one company which is unprofitable.
So you mean to say path to profitability is already established? You mean to say that?
It is, and the longer we will wait, the more the returns we will lose. So if we will keep on focusing on profitability, we will lose returns. Zomato IPO'd at $80. Today it is 320, 4 times. And all this has happened when they were unprofitable. Policy Bazaar IPO'd at, I think, 800 rupees. Today they are double. And all this happened when they were unprofitable. Returns are not made when these companies turn profitable. Returns are made prior to that. In fact, if you look at the PE ratios and earnings of most of these companies, best returns were made when they were unprofitable. And I wish I could crisp everything for you in just a few sentences, but there's a reason I've written a whole detailed book on this, simply because it is the need of the hour for us Indian investors to understand that US investors made a big mistake, especially Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and all, because they did not have the precedent or the valuation models to value these companies. But after having seen the mistakes that some of the US stalwart investors have made, we should not make the mistake of thinking that they will turn profitable. Old school will not work. See, old school, like we discussed when we met, there is specialization and improvement in every industry. Today, houses are not made the same way they were made 100 years back. Today, TVs are not made the same way they were made even 20 years back. Processes and technology and everything in every industry has to improve. So then why are we using those old school 100-year-old models to value the new age internet businesses today? I'm sure if Mr. Graham were alive today, he would have understood that internet companies are different, and he would have given us a different framework to value internet companies, because he was not aware
I agree.
in 1920s that 1990s internet will come and it will not subscribe to his methods of valuations.
I agree. I think even Buffett also agreed that he has missed the bus, and then when he bought the Apple a few years back. So that I
So
agree.
for the lack of valuations, we should not miss the compounding opportunity.
Understood.
And let me explain why. See, let's say, so there is a lot of value in being broadly right than being precisely wrong. What will I do valuing a company like Infosys or TCS or Wipro to the T? Let's say I'm a great analyst and I value it appropriately, but there is no compounding. But I am okay in going wrong in valuations for a digital company because I know compounding will take care of it. Now, if a digital company is growing at 50% in a year and I got valuations wrong by 50%, at max, I'll lose 1 year. Right? Let's say valuations go down by 50%, compounding happens by 50%, my net return for 1 year is zero. Next year compounding will be 50% again. I'll make 50% returns. So there's a lot of value in being broadly wrong in digital than being too precise in companies where we feel comfortable. See, unfortunately, the investment world has moved into convenience. That I can apply a PE, I can apply an EV to EBITDA, which is something that both AI and a 10-year-old can also do. Unfortunately, we will not be able to make returns in future if we will continue to subscribe to 100-year-old models.
Understood. Right one, I got it. Gagan, I think you can extend the session for a few more minutes because it's interesting, and then I think there are lots of questions also. I think we should take one by one and then get inputs from Varun.
Okay. So we'll extend it by another 5 odd minutes.
No problem.
Okay. So I think Varun has covered a couple of questions. I'm just trying to see any new value add-on question we can present to the entire board.
Okay, well, I have one question. Let me put it that way. Varun, whatever we saw in US is mostly tech companies. But do you see the similarities of tech companies in India? In India, it's mostly uh, companies which are actually disrupting the existing business models, like whether it's retail, whether it's fintech or whatever, except for the food delivery thing. How do you see that aspect? How do you compare that the real tech versus what is happening in India?
So US companies also did the same. Amazon disrupted retail. Apple disrupted electronics. Microsoft has disrupted IT services. Software disrupts IT services. So US companies have also done the same. Booking.com has disrupted the travel industry, the bookings industry, and Airbnb has disrupted the hotel industry. These are the same trends in India. It's not different anymore. The good part is that Indian innovation is even better than the US. Neither US could think about something like a UPI, nor they could think about something like a quick commerce. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense for them because India is 16 times more density than US. US is 4 times more land area and India is 4 times more population. But now they're thinking about it. There are apps like Instacart in the US, in Seattle, which are opening up and delivering on the same day. So actually, Indian innovation has to start from where US was. But it won't happen so quickly in the same line, right? For instance, semiconductors, they're far ahead. But when it comes to delivery and logistics, we are even better. When it comes to UPI and fintech, we are far, far better than US. But it's all the same. It's nothing different. China is also the same. Alibaba has disrupted retail, Tencent has disrupted media. It's all the same. Now we
Yeah.
should keep an eye on Zoho. Zoho is India's Microsoft equivalent.
Correct.
They are planning to come out with laptop OS also. I would happily migrate to that because all my data will sit in India. And the products, if you take it's a personal opinion. I think their products, Zoho's products are far, far better than Microsoft and cheaper because Microsoft is all legacy technology, which has been migrated into new. Zoho is all new. So India can actually leapfrog ahead of the US also eventually. We'll do it in semiconductors also. I'm pretty sure.
There is one question, Gagan, I'll read out. US digital companies are all competing in India, making it difficult for our digital companies, especially SaaS companies, where there are no restrictions from the government. For example, Freshworks, an Indian company, although listed in Nasdaq, has struggled to perform.
Has actually not struggled to perform. They have killed their competition. Today, if you look at Zendesk and all, they are struggling because of Freshworks, but it's a company specific thing. See, uh, today India is not in a position to say goodbye to US giants. I mean, if India wanted to tighten US's screws and Trump's screws, we could have easily done that. We can just simply announce that Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Meta cease to exist in India, right? The moment we do that, Trump will be impeached. It's a very simple thing for us to do. But the challenge is, what will you and I do? We don't have mobile OS. We don't have laptop OS. So many people are on iPhones and Android. So many people are generating living out of YouTube and Instagram. So today, India is not in a position the way China was 15 years back, the China threw out everyone. Today you have a Google, Baidu as a Google equivalent, Alibaba as an Amazon equivalent, and everybody, right? So India cannot do that, unfortunately for us, which means that first we have to create the Indian counterparts. So kill e-commerce with quick commerce, right? It's all Indian companies. Now e-commerce is feeling the heat of quick commerce. Similarly, you will have Zoho and someone else coming up in India, which can actually compete with Microsoft. Then eventually there will be something out of India which will start competing with Google and YouTube also. So we have that limitation that we cannot throw them out. However, the good part is that Indian ecosystem will develop ahead of US ecosystem because you have to fight with the best, right?
Yeah. So the competition actually is
Yeah.
helping.
It's like if India had to fight against Pakistan versus China, I will choose Pakistan. But if you were to start your fight with China straight away, you know that you're going to be best in the world.
Correct.
It's a tougher ask for Indian entrepreneurs, but I think they will over time innovate even higher than what US companies have done, which is something that they've shown. And let that happen over time. Maybe
Right.
after 10 years, we'll be in a position to throw out all the US giants the way
The
China
challenge
did.
is going to be there. What you're saying is the challenge is going to be there, and then we need to come out of it, and which is a look at from a positive perspective.
Actually, Indian companies will eventually go to the US and beat their competition. Look at what Razorpay is doing. Today's Razorpay's technology is far better than that of Stripe or even PayPal or even Adyen, which is based out of Netherlands. And Razorpay has gone outside. Pine Labs is going outside, which means that in India, the fintech ecosystem has become so strong that others are afraid of us. So if we were to come out with a Meta equivalent or a WhatsApp equivalent, it will be far, far better than those counterparts. And so US will adopt it. It will happen, but with time.
Right.
Okay, I think we need to wind up the call. We would love to have more interaction, but for lack of time, Ramna, do you want to propose the vote of thanks?
Yeah, as usual, Varun, good. I mean, I know you would really talk about these things, so passionate about the valuations and other things. And what I like it is the new perspective, particularly for the old school thought people like me or many of my clients also who are there. It brings a new perspective, which I think is definitely yes. And thank you very much. I hope all our clients really had very good feedback, and I'm seeing a lot of messages also coming saying that it's a very good session, and then we got really enriched with the new thoughts. And thank you, Varun, for doing that. And thanks all the clients for taking out time on a Saturday morning. And we hope to continue these type of webinars in future also. And have a good weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Actually, we can end the call for everybody. Thanks.